Hey guys, welcome back to the Nihongoji YouTube channel. Today I'm talking about what I'd be looking out for if I was looking to move into a new apartment in Tokyo. Let's get started. So the first thing I'd be looking for is the amount of light, especially natural light, that gets in the room. If you're gonna choose to live in a big city like Tokyo, there are some trade-offs, right? You'll pay a lot more in rent for a much smaller space. Chances are, if you have a window, right, it's gonna be tiny and won't let a lot of light in, or you might have a huge building like right next to it. So you just wanna kind of be aware of the fact that if you come from a culture where you live in places that are much more open or have much larger windows and let a lot more natural light in, you might struggle with that living in Tokyo at the beginning. That's why this time I chose a place with the biggest windows that I could find. I can't even tell you how much I looked. I even got into a small debate with my Japanese friend here who was like, "You don't have curtains on your windows yet?" right after I moved in here. Because at the beginning, I was just so happy to have larger windows that I didn't even think about getting curtains yet. Like, it was just not high on the priority list because I just wanted to soak in as much light as possible. As the previous place I lived in had, one window and really didn't get a lot of sun. So in general, people say when you look at the listings online for the place you want to rent, you want to try to find a place that's facing south, right? Minami-muki, as that'll give you the most amount of sunlight possible every day, accounting for the direction of the sun and everything. So there you go. Of course, if you're someone who's out all the time, I mean, you don't need a big place, nor do you need a lot of light probably. If you're just going to be out, if your job is outside or you're always hanging out with friends or you're always doing something outdoors, you don't necessarily need a big place to feel at home. I'm a big indoor person. I like spending a lot of time indoors, so I spend a lot of time kind of arranging the place how I like it and making a comfortable living space since I spend a lot of time here. Now, the next thing I'd look out for is to make sure that you're aware of the initial costs of renting the space. As you know, I'm not gonna go over the whole shebang, right? But shikikin, baking, there are lots of initial, you might say hidden fees, even though they're not really hidden because everyone knows about them. But there's a lot of initial fees that might make your initial month of rent twice or 3 times the amount that you might be expecting, just because there's a lot of these initial costs. So you might want to look out for that. Make sure you know how much you need in the bank to make the initial move. Otherwise, you might be in for a not so pleasant surprise. Moving companies here can be a bit more expensive too, especially if you're younger and you don't have much budget. So that's something to keep in mind too. When I first moved into the place before this, actually, I enlisted a friend with a car, super nice guy. He used to be the leader of the boy band I was previously in, and yeah, he drove a lot of stuff to the new house for me. I didn't have that much stuff, so a car was fine for that time, and it was super nice. Thank you, Martin. I'll remember that forever. But yeah, for my next house, I didn't want to spend the money on a proper mover, so since the place I'm living in now is about a 20-minute walk from where I used to live, I tried initially to just carry all my stuff. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Please don't repeat my mistakes. Just get a proper moving company. The moving companies here in Japan are usually great. They'll be gentle with your stuff, careful, and they're very efficient. Like, they know what they're doing. So yeah, you don't have to worry about getting stuff stolen or damaged really, because they'll take care of your stuff. The next thing I'd say I'd look out for, and this is a pretty big one for me, but it would be location, right? Where are you located in the city? Are you outside the city? Are you next to a train line? This is really important, especially if you're in Tokyo. Because let me tell you, being 5 minutes away from a train station, being 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes away, it's a big difference. And you're gonna feel it a lot in either the cold winter months or the blistering hot summer months. Yeah, that extra 5 or 10 minutes, it's not gonna be pleasant every day. So right now, I'm really happy because I'm about a 5-minute walk from my nearest train station, which makes worlds of a difference. And I even have a few other train lines I can go if I walk 10, maybe 15 minutes away from here. So I'm really happy because yeah, I have 3 train lines around here and the closest one is really close by. So really happy about that one. It's been a lifesaver. Of course, being close to the place you work is also going to be a huge thing, just because the less time you spend commuting, especially if you're going to be living in Tokyo and you're going to have to go during rush hour, the better off you'll be. So choose a place that's close to your work if you're going to be there for a while. And yeah, I would say that's about it. But the next thing on my list, also related to location, would be checking a hazard map. As you may or may not know, Japan often is the victim of quite a few earthquakes and other natural disasters. So while Japan has very good emergency response systems set in place, and in general, even if there's a big earthquake, nothing happens, you never know if a huge one comes or if there's a nasty hurricane and there's gonna be a lot of flooding. You never know what could happen. So there are always hazard maps that you can ask for when you're looking to rent a place, and you can see, how prone is the area to flooding? Are there any other risks you should be aware of? So that's really useful to take a look at and give you some peace of mind. In the same vein, relating to safety, Japan's housing market is kind of a weird place, and people here really like moving into new locations. By new locations, I mean new buildings, right? It's quite common to move into a place that's been built in either the last year or the last 3 years, as apartments and living space are constantly being destroyed and rebuilt, which some people might view as waste. And from an environmental perspective, I can definitely see how that might not be the best. But on the other hand, it actually has quite a few upsides, because the living space you'll be living in, they're usually built super nicely. The places are going to be super clean. And this is another important part. They're going to be built adhering to the latest safety standards and guidelines when it comes to, resistance against earthquakes and other natural disasters. So you can just live here at peace. You might come from a country where you didn't have a lot of earthquakes, so you might be kind of scared when you have your initial earthquake shaking experiences. But you can rest assured that Japan takes that stuff pretty seriously. And in general, you'll be safe, as you'll be living in a newer building that was built with a lot of these new safety measures and guidelines at the base. Yeah, I would say a few other quick things to check would be, are you allowed to have pets in the house? Because in general, they can be pretty strict about that, even about what kind of pets might be allowed. Are you allowed to have instruments in the house? For example, I have a digital piano. I've been told in the past that no instruments were allowed. And even though with the digital piano, I can just slip on headphones and have no sound come out of it at all, I have been even told that, of course, technically a digital piano is still an instrument, so it still technically would be against the rules. But, in my previous living space, they let me off light on that one. So as long as you're reasonable, things should be fine. But just check to make sure that there aren't any rules that go against how you might want to live here in Japan. Usually you won't have to worry about the state of the air conditioning or whether hot water comes out, because in general things are always going to be updated to a newer version. Things usually work pretty well. I mean, if your air conditioner looks pretty old, you might want to ask if you can have that replaced before you move in, because when it comes to the summer months, if that AC unit stops working, woo, you're in for a rough time, since usually the wait times to get your AC unit fixed during those winter or summer months, well, the wait time is going to be very long. So you want to make sure that you have a nice one set up. Usually the Japanese ones work very well, so nothing really to be worried about on that front. Just be aware of that. One thing that I would like to change would be get newer toilets. Since I have one of the older versions, I want one of the Toto ones with the wash lid and the heated seat and everything. Actually, I guess this one does have a heated, but I haven't really turned it on. It seems to be like an older model. I just keep it unplugged. Probably have to look into that at some point. But yeah, generally things are pretty nice. I'm little by little upgrading my house the way I like it. So I set up an automatic lock that I can open through an app. I set up an automatic curtain opener. I can control the AC as well from my phone now. And I've set up the space in a way that's a lot nicer than it was before. So if you want me to showcase on this channel where I'm living and how I'm living a little bit more, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, maybe hit that bell icon, and let me know what you want to see more of on this channel. I'm thinking of doing a real cost of living in Tokyo 2025 version, right? That breaks down my rent, utility bills, what I spend on food, entertainment, things like that, just so I have an idea of what it might cost to live in Tokyo, especially if you're looking to move here. But yeah, great talking to you. Thanks for joining this chiller video. Literally went without a script, but it was nice. It was nice. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.